All right, hey you guys, and welcome back to Taking Flight with me. My name is Mike Rocket Blackstone. Today is the 12th of July, 2025, Saturday morning. And yesterday, the preliminary report, rather, for the accident involving Air India's Flight 171, registration number Victor Tango Alpha November Bravo, from Ahmedabad on June 12th, 2025, has been released. I have the report here, and I'm going to go through this thing with you. I read it for the first time this morning so that I kind of have an idea of what we're going to discuss here. But basically, I'd like to go through it point by point as things popped out to me. And as I got to the end of this thing and got to the final point, we'll get to that towards the end. So if you want to just jump ahead to the end, you're feel free to do that. But basically, this thing breaks it down point by point, 15 pages worth. And I'll start off with the passengers, 230 passengers, 10 crew member, 2 flight crew were killed, with the 1 passenger that survived it, of course. It was on its way to Gatwick on June 12, 2025. And from this report, after reading it, it goes on to tell you that everything was normal. And it was a hot day, and they used the full length of runway. Everything was normal, as you might imagine. And the engines were operating normally. Although they originally had said 1 engine had been overhauled, this report goes on to tell you that both engines had been overhauled, and within a month of each other. So is that a critical factor here? I don't think so. It just says the left engine was installed on May 1st, 2025, and the right-hand engine was installed on the aircraft on the 26th of March, 2025. So March, and then in May, it had the other engine done, staggered them, make sure it was running properly, and then return to service. It doesn't make sense to change both engines simultaneously so that you don't have the possibility of having a misinstalled engine on board with an engine that had just also been recently overhauled and reinstalled, so that there's a chance for a double malfunction there. They do one, make sure it's working right, then do the other a couple months later. That's not a factor here. Those engines were operating fine. The runway length, which initially concerned me that it might have taken off from an intersection takeoff, is not true. And I retract that statement completely. They used full length. And I ran some numbers on this at 469,000 pounds, which the report claims is the takeoff weight, and how many meters it would take to get that airplane airborne at that weight on a 40 degrees centigrade day. And it looked like it was going to take nearly the entire runway anyway, plus or minus about 400 meters, which is about 1,200 feet from the end, which is a very long takeoff roll, but normal for a temperature condition at that airport on that day. Where this thing gets really sketchy is as you scroll down. I mean, this thing is it's just so sad to see this, and completely preventable. That airplane was doing the best it could. And I've spoken to another 787 pilot. I'm a 777 captain now, and fairly new on the equipment. So I've got about 100 hours in the left seat of that thing, and as a co-pilot, about 800 hours. So I'm about a 900-hour pilot, which is similar to what the co-pilot had on the 787 Flight 171 from Air India. So he was getting to the part where he's feeling very, very comfortable and competent and capable. So I believe he was the pilot flying, according to this report, and he was on the controls, flying it. And I'm not sure who did the Mayday call, and they didn't make that clear on who did the Mayday call, but I believe the co-pilot was flying it and doing as good of a job as he could do when this situation happened, and we'll talk about what that was here in a minute. But I had recently spoken to a 787 pilot who flies to Delhi all the time, and the performance out of Delhi, India, is not awesome, okay, on any day at high gross weights, which is what we do. It's a long ways away from India to anywhere in the Western world. So even coming from India, Delhi to, say, JFK, we're talking like a 14-hour flight, extremely heavy gross weight takeoffs. Oftentimes they would leave 8,000 pounds of cargo behind. The runway and the weight and the temperature that they fly out of there can't take all the weight. It's just limited. So this situation is a stressful and critical takeoff configuration at high gross weights and high temperatures on any given day in any of these airplanes. Even the 777 would be struggling out of there at 777,000 pounds, high gross weights, high temperature. It's a varsity A game situation at a Delhi in the summertime. Back to the case that we're dealing with here. This aircraft had the engines were operating at full power, from what we understand, all the way to 3 seconds after liftoff. And if you go down to, scroll this thing down to the timeline, okay, which is down here in the section here near the end. Okay, so you got to go all the way down, and you can see when this happened, okay? 3 seconds after takeoff. It shows you how many seconds this thing was actually in the takeoff phase. It took about a minute to get this thing airborne, okay? It had to go the full length of runway, and it taxied. These are in Zulu time, okay? So in universal coordinated time, okay? Zulu time. It taxied to the runway 23 via taxiway Romeo 4 and backtracked, which is a back taxi, to line up full length at 0807 and 33 seconds. So we'll use the 7 minute and 33 second UTC time to begin when it was issued. Then the aircraft started rolling at 7:37, 4 seconds later. So we have to set the power, like we push the power up. In the 777, it would be to 52%, 55% N1 to get the engine stabilized. Make sure you have symmetrical spool up. We press the button for toga, which is run the power. It runs the power all the way up using the auto throttles. And takeoff thrust is set. The non-flying pilot would verify that. You'd have takeoff thrust is set. So if we have a target N1 of 100.1%, it would say it's 100.1%, thrust set. The airplane begins to roll at 80 knots. They would say 80, okay? And then now we wait for something to go wrong. If something were to go wrong, an engine over temp, an engine quit, a system failure, prior to 80 knots, you would abort the takeoff, you close the throttles, and you would begin your rejected takeoff procedure, which is speed brakes deployed, forward pressure on the stick, and the captain would take over and steer the airplane to a stop, okay? After 80 knots, the only thing we're gonna stop for is a fire, an engine fire, a cargo fire, a failure, a system failure, major malfunction, okay? That leads us to believe that the airplane is incapable or unable to fly, okay? Up to V1. After V1, we're not gonna stop. We have to keep going after V1, which is the takeoff decision speed. And in the 787, that was 153 knots that day, and it achieved 153 knots at 0833. So from 0737 to 0833, okay, 57 seconds it took this airplane to get up to that speed. And that's because it has a derated takeoff thrust due to the high temperature. Even though they're using maximum power, because the temperature is so high, this engine was essentially derated about 15%. And it took that long to get it up to VR, which is 155 knots. So literally 2 knots more than V1 is rotation speed. It achieved that at 35. So literally 37 to 35 the next minute, right? 58 seconds, this airplane achieved rotation speed. It lifted off the ground 4 seconds later. So then it's got a slow rotation. Maybe the rotation was a touch slow, but I probably would do a slow rotation as well due to the sluggish performance. So it took 4 seconds from 0835 to 0839 UTC to transition to air mode. And in other words, the weight came off the wheels and the airplane was in the air. The aircraft achieved a maximum speed of 180 knots, which is totally normal for the airplane to be in at a rotation phase. 155, slow rotation, continuing to accelerate slowly as the nose is pitched up and the plane is maintaining relatively flat attitude to help it accelerate. We just don't jerk the airplane into the air to nose high attitude. We let the plane continue to accelerate to V2, which it did not say what V2 was, but I'm assuming it's somewhere in the 165 range, which would be normal to get to V2, which is a safety speed. And they achieved 180 knots at 0842. So from 39 to 42, 3 more seconds, this airplane was in the air at 180 knots. And engine 1 and engine 2 fuel cutoff switches transitioned from run to cutoff. Wow. Right? So when I read this and it says that they one after another with a time gap of 0.1 seconds. There's no decimal point in here. It's not 0.01. It's not 0.1 seconds. And that decimal point would be critical here. If it's 1 second, a real second, a 1001, 1002, right? Literally positive rate, gear up, 1001, 1002, 1003, bang, bang. Both switches were put into the cutoff position. With that, 3 seconds after liftoff, the engine N1 and N2 began to decrease. They rolled back. It's just as if you were sitting at the gate and you were shutting the airplane down to park it. We never would do that. That is something that I've been flying airplanes since I was 8 years old. I can count on one hand, literally, the times that during training that the fuel switch, such as the mixture switch on a piston-powered airplane or a fuel control switch was cut off during training to simulate an engine failure on a multi-engine airplane early on in my career, way back when. We don't do it. Like literally shutting engines down in flight on purpose ever is so forbidden and so taboo that you have literally, we don't touch that switch. That's how important it is. It only is touched during an engine failure. We do it in training. We would do it very, very cautiously. Even in a real situation, it is so serious that we literally don't like to talk about it. That's how awesome it is and sacred that switch is. I can tell you about the time when I lost an engine in a light twin airplane, and how nerve-wracking this is. You know, when you're flying a single engine or single pilot situation in a multi-engine airplane. I've got time like in the Beech 18 behind me. Luckily, I've never had an engine failure in that thing shortly after takeoff. It would be hands full for sure and hairy. But the time that I did have an engine failure in a light twin single pilot was while I was flying an Aztec from LA up to Fresno when I was in the Fresno Air National Guard up there, flying my dad's Aztec on a guard drill weekend. Well, I was up there, and in my infinite wisdom, I was trying to balance the gas. So as I'm flying along, I got 4 fuel tanks, and as I recall it, the plane was, say, leaning left. So in my mind, the left tank was fuller than the right tank, and I decided I was going to run both engines off of the left tanks. So in order to do that, I would open the cross feed, which is between the seats on an Aztec, open the cross feed, and turn off the fuel on one side and burn both sides, both engines, from the right tank. and in order to, I'm sorry, from the left tank. So I would open the crossfeed and turn off the fuel on the right side to burn them both from the left to try to balance this fuel imbalance that I thought I needed to adjust for to make it so it would fly hands off. Now I flew all the time with the autopilot off. I never engaged in autopilot on any of our light airplanes. I hand flew everything, so I was always a trimming guy, constantly trimming this thing to try to make it fly straight, hands off. So as luck would have it, shortly thereafter, we get the fuel crossfeed engaged, turn off the fuel, both engines quit a few seconds later. So when that happens, of course, I'm at altitude when this is happening, and maybe, I don't know, to call it 8,500 feet or something. I'm up at altitude, both engines quit. So if you've done something and it goes bad, what do? Undo it, right? So fuel crossfeed back to the closed position and put the fuel back on and put the mixture in and try to get this thing, turn the boost pump on and try to get these engines relit. I got one engine relit and I could not get the other engine relit, and I landed at the nearest suitable airport, which at this case was just a few miles down the road, landed at Fresno uneventfully, and had determined later that I had introduced fuel with water in it from the crossfeed, from the center area that doesn't normally get drained properly, and there was me, shaken like a leaf that I inadvertently had a double engine malfunction by myself. I caused it, and I had to undo it, and I had to get the engines relit, and a self-induced emergency back in the day. Okay, that's where some of these gray hairs come from. Okay, so you can see how it can happen, and when you're doing fuel balance situations, you do it at a high enough altitude to be safe. Making a fuel control switch change shortly, 3 seconds after takeoff, is completely out of the question of anything representing normal, clear mindset. Now, who did that and why? We don't know yet, and we're going to probably find out as they continue. Now, these are my opinions. These are speculation now. We're going to go into the speculation area. What causes this kind of thing to happen? Co-pilot's flying. He's got a new career going. I'm feeling that this is a captain-induced situation. And we don't know what's going on in his life, and there are many things that pilots have to deal with in their personal lives and in their own psychology, psychosis, right? So what is going on inside of a pilot's mind that is so bad that makes them want to do something like this? We don't know. And pilot suicides are real. We've seen it back in the day of the German airplane that crashed in the Alps. I believe it was in 2015. We saw another one in Egypt. Okay, I believe that MH370 was another suicide mission. It hasn't been confirmed. I mean, so everybody wants the solid confirmation that these things did happen and prove it. And who gets paid when a pilot commits suicide? The next of kin. And if they don't deem it a suicide, the insurance would pay out of sympathy for the family. Okay, so I'm not saying that suicide is not acceptable, because it certainly is not. I don't know what your belief is in God and whether or not that's something that is acceptable for you in your religion or not, but certainly having a belief in God and knowing that suicide is not good and not an option and not a way to reach heaven would be helpful for people to have that belief. So I pray for the families. I believe in God. I pray for families. I pray for those that suffered through the outcome of this. And I pray for the pilots that are out there that are suffering from any kind of mental illness or depression or financial problems. There is nothing out there that is worth killing yourself over and taking other people with you. If you have a problem, you need to reach out for help. There are help hotlines. There's wingman programs. There are help lines out there. Ask a friend. Talk to each other. Find out whether or not the guy that you're flying with is okay. Ask each other. Be personal and care. Really, I mean, this is not about doing a psychological evaluation on your fellow pilot and trying to get him fired. It's about helping people. So I'm hoping that this video is going to help bring to light some of the things that are clear from this. No one wants to admit it. They don't actually go into that possibility in this report. It's not confirmed yet, but it's a strong indication that that's where we're at. It continues on to letting the engine spool down, and the rat deployed at 0847. Okay, so 42 was 0842 is when the engines were shut off. Okay, and at 47, is that 5 seconds? 47, the rat's deployed. Okay, the rat did exactly what it's supposed to do, and at 52, the APU inlet door opened. It began, and it actually it began opening at 54. Okay, 0854. The APU was beginning to start. This thing was getting a generator online to power itself. The plane was operating perfectly. It was doing exactly what it was designed to do with its auto start logic. At 56, 0856, the engine number 2 fuel cutoff switch transitions from cutoff to run. The right one. The right engine is the engine number 2. That one was returned from cutoff to run. That may have been the co-pilot bringing that switch up. He says, why are the fuel control switches cut off? And the other pilot says, I don't know. Of course, if he did it on purpose, is he going to say, oh yeah, I was hoping that you wouldn't notice? Whoever did it lied about it. Obviously, it's on the tape that way. And the number 2 fuel cutoff switch was re-energized. The switch was put from cutoff back to run, which requires a pull and then upward. And when the fuel control switches are moved from cutoff to run while the aircraft is in flight, each engine is full authority dual engine controller, the FADEC, automatically manages a relight and thrust recovery sequence of ignition and fuel introduction. The engines begin a relight in flight process, an automatic relight. The EGT was observed to be rising on both engines, indicating relight. Engine 1's core deceleration stopped, reversed, and started to progress to recovery. Engine 2 was able to relight, but could not arrest the core speed deceleration and reintroduced fuel repeatedly to increase core speed, acceleration, and recovery. The right engine was unable to relight. I missed one, okay. The engine number 1 fuel cutoff switch transitioned from cutoff to run at 0852, and then the number 2 was put from cutoff to run at 56. So 4 seconds after that. So the left engine was put up first, then the right engine 4 seconds later. The left engine recovered, the right one did not. And by that point, they were so far behind the power curve, aerodynamically, one engine slowly starting to recover, they just ran out of time. They ran out of altitude, which to me means that was the point of the cutting of the engines right after liftoff. Had they been a little higher, they would have got one engine running and this would have been survivable, right? So it appears to me that this was designed to put the pilot flying into a critical situation that was unrecoverable because of the timing of it. 3 seconds after liftoff, you wouldn't get high enough to have enough time to relight the motors. Somebody did this on purpose. And I feel in my heart of hearts, I could be totally wrong. It might be the opposite, that the captain did this. And that's hard. That is hard to even imagine. It's hard to believe, but it is not out of the realm of possibility here. And it seems the most likely scenario. The Mayday call. I'm interested to find out who made the Mayday call. We should be able to hear the voice of the person talking on the ground control frequency, which 99.9% of the time, that would be the co-pilot's voice, calling for push, calling for taxi clearance. And then the voice that comes on for the takeoff roll typically would be the pilot not flying. So the voice should change from the ground controller to the air traffic control side when he goes to the tower frequency. That should be the captain's voice saying Air India 171, clear for takeoff, runway 23. They roll. Whose voice is the mayday? Is it the captain's voice? Mayday, mayday, we've lost the engines, we're going in? Or is that the co-pilot's voice? My intuition here is that mayday call was most likely from the co-pilot, desperately trying to save this airplane, and not the captain because he caused this. That's what my speculation is here, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am, but that's what it's looking like, you guys. So this is going to take some time. It continues on. That it'll probably take another year for this thing to really come out, and we won't know really what the mindset of this captain was. They're going to have to interview the family. They're going to have to interview friends. What were his political affiliations? Did he have a beef with the company? Was he being overworked, underpaid, unappreciated, didn't feel a sense of worth? I mean, these things could all play into it, and this was a disgruntled employee that wanted to end his life in the most spectacular way possible, and shame on him for doing that. I think that is, it shatters the confidence that the public has in flying, and the trust that people put into us to take care of them and their loved ones. I love flying. I've been flying for 44 years. It's the highlight and the passion of my life. It's the greatest gift I've ever had, and I cherish it with everything, every ounce of my being. I love taking care of people and airplanes and flying. That's my happy place. That's where I go to enjoy my life. I feel grateful to be there. I love flying, and I fly with most people that I fly with love flying too. And if you're one of those people that are struggling and not enjoying flying and have dark thoughts and are not happy there, and you feel that you're depressed and you're worried about your paycheck or your income, there are plans and help lines for you. There's disability. We can get paid, you guys, to take time off of work and be off on a disability to get the help that you need and come back. There's no shame in that. So if that's where you're at mentally, if there's anything that our company can do, if you need help, please contact someone, and we would love to be there for you and support you. We know that this is a stressful job, and if it's becoming too stressful for you, or the financial stress is there, please ask for help. We are more than willing to help you. So I pray for you guys. I pray for this thing to be resolved in a wonderful way that hopefully stops this from ever happening again, and we can have less of these types of videos in the future. So stay safe out there, guys. Keep on flying. Keep your heads up, and be vigilant out there. Help those in need. Thanks for watching this channel. My name is Mike Blackstone. You're watching Taking Flight. I'll see you in the next episode.